Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May or the Tim May Podcast, along with my regular cohort, Austin Ward. We're still operating here in the aftermath of watching in what I consider to be a stirring national championship game, a victory by LSU over Clemson, what Ohio State fans now refer to as hated Clemson. Joe Burrow once again stepping into the breach and delivering bullet after bullet that finally shot down Clemson. Agreed there, Austin?
Yeah, it was a remarkable performance, an incredible season by Joe Burrow. We'll have a lot more to talk about with him as this show goes on. But
yeah,
I have to imagine not a lot of sympathy for what happened to Clemson last night around Columbus or for anybody wearing scarlet and gray. And it was a little bit amusing to see some of those calls go against Dabo. You had the targeting, the overturned touchdown.
Yeah,
I'm sure that Ohio State fans took just a little bit of joy out of that.
What goes around comes around, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get more into Joe Burrow later in the program, like you said, because I'm going to have his father on. We had him on after the win over Texas back in what was that September?
Way back
in September, late September, and of course you saw a lot of shots of him and his wife Robin, Joe's mom, in the stands on Monday night as Joe Burrow, just the improbable story of Joe Burrow, just added another chapter, and we're going to talk about that. But, before we get into that, I've got my friend Jeff Snook. No one watches more college football than my friend Jeff Snook. Now, I'm rivaling him now that I'm semi-retired, and I watched a lot of football games this year. I was at the Ohio State games, obviously. But then you got to understand, me and my buddy Jeff Snook, we're into watching like the Belk Bowl and stuff. I mean, we both really love college football and what it's all about. And, hey, Jeff, welcome in, man.
Thanks, Tim. Austin, appreciate
it. Just real take, your quick take on what we saw in the national championship game, just like an overview of – Was that the victory when you look back on this college football season that should have come? I mean, when you watch the Cinderella rise of both Joe Burrow and LSU.
It really is amazing what they did in 1 year and how much they improved from last year, his junior year to his senior year. Just like a light switch was flipped and they just became unstoppable. And also their philosophy changed a little bit. You can see they weren't satisfied to ever sit on the ball, even with a lead. They just attacked from that very first that second game of the year at Texas when they had 3rd and 17, and he dropped back and moved around in the pocket and threw another touchdown pass. And I mean, that just set the tone for the whole year. And I really thought as the year went on, their defense would come back to bite them because they gave up 38 to Vandy at one point. I think they gave up 38 to Ole Miss, if I remember.
Yeah.
And I just thought eventually the defense would get them. But even when they went to Alabama, they outscored them. They gave up 41 there, which is no shame because it's Alabama. But at the end, the defense got better. The last 3 or 4 games, they got a little more healthy, and their defensive backs played a little better. I think they got one of them back. And once that defense got better where they could get off the field and get some stops, the offense just never relented, and they just kept it up. And it was interesting to see them do that again once they fell behind 17-7 in the second quarter.
Yeah, the best defense on the field last night from the second quarter on was the LSU defense, especially I thought the front guys. I mean, they were in a three down man, sometimes 4. They'd bring a guy up, but I thought at times they dominated the game and forced Trevor Lawrence into looking average at best. You agreed?
Yeah, he sort of played last night like he started the season. He didn't have a good game at Syracuse, even though they were blowing people out. He didn't have a good game in the game at Chapel Hill where it came down to a 2-point conversion. But then they flipped the switch and turned it on, became the old Clemson. So, when I look at this, I still would like to see what would have happened if the committee wouldn't have got involved so much and flipped Ohio State and LSU from 1 to 2, just to see Ohio State and LSU in that championship game, because that's the way I think it would have turned out. Ohio State would have beaten Oklahoma, and as we see, LSU would have beaten Clemson, and I would have loved to have seen that matchup of how Ohio State's defense would have gone after Joe and what they would have tried to do. It was obvious last night Brent Venables, when he tried that 3-1-7, was having success early, but a lot of the reason was they had him pinned back inside their 5 the first 2 series.
Yes.
And you could tell they were running that double A gap blitz, and
yep.
they were trying to give him the look like they were dropping 7 and then coming after him, and they confused him a little bit. They just couldn't keep it up, and once LSU got better field position, they hit that first bomb to tie it up at 7-7. I really thought when it's 28-25, LSU might be in trouble, and Clemson had momentum again. Because Clemson's not going to give up or lay down. They just got too many good athletes, or too well coached, and then they turned it on again. It was fun to watch.
Yeah,
Jeff, when you look at this, I remember you asked Dabo about sort of the historical perspective of the playoff and how things have changed over the years, and then you just alluded to the selection committee, which I think got it wrong. Sort of what you're saying there with 1 through 4 and the flip flop at the top. When you look at this year, the committee really had it on a silver platter, I think, and they still got it wrong. Are you happy with the way it's gone? Are there still tweaks that you'd like to see to this format?
Well, no, I'm a 14 playoff guy. I do not believe it should be expanded for about 100 reasons. Yeah. And the main ones, that go through them very quickly, are just the regular season is as good as it gets in any sport. The regular season matters. The championship games, I'm talking about the conference championship games, matter. If you would expand this from 4 to 8, you'd have to do something with the championship games, because you would have 2 teams in many conferences playing in a game that they're going to automatically qualify for the playoff anyway in the next couple of weeks, and you just don't know how important those games become all of a sudden. It also diminished the rivalry games. A lot of years, Ohio State and Michigan would automatically be in the playoff together, and then you got them playing at the end of there, just like Auburn, Alabama, and so on. So I don't want to see expansion. I just think they overreacted, and I believe, when I look at the first 5 years of the playoff, I still think they've got it right most of the time as far as the 4 teams go. I still believe that. I don't think Ohio State deserved to get in a year ago when they got crushed by Purdue, and 2 years ago with Iowa. I still don't think they had an argument. Now, this past year, I just think they overreacted and retweaked those seedings when LSU clobbered Georgia, and they didn't consider the whole season as an entity. If they would have, Ohio State would have remained number 1 and would have had Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl. So I just think they overreacted. I know many of those guys on the committee. I don't think, at least the guys I know, I don't think overreact the media or what ESPN's opinion is. I don't think they do. Now, I can't speak for the entire room, but it's just a shame that the Fiesta Bowl wasn't well officiated as well. I mean, you look at that game, as Tim would say, but I digress. I don't want to get back into it. But there was just so many calls that were just 50-50, and every one of them, maybe 6 to 7 plays, and not all of them were officials called, but there's 6 to 7 plays in that game. If any one of those go Ohio State's way, they win the game, and every one of them went the other way.
Yeah.
It just, I'm not sure the 2 best teams played last night, to be honest with you.
Hey, but I don't know. I thought the 2 best. I said going into the Fiesta Bowl, I thought the 2 best teams were playing in the Fiesta Bowl. I stand corrected. I think LSU at the end of the year was a hell of a team. And I'm talking about offensively and defensively. And they were defensively, it was a complimenting kind of situation. They were good enough on defense to go along with that ridiculous offense they had with Joe Burrow just over the top throwing the football. I mean, last night there was a drop touchdown catch. He could have had 6 touchdown passes in the national championship game against a defense that by hook or crook, held Ohio State to 23 points. You can look at it any way you want to look at it, but they turned that finally. They turned that Brent Venables attack the A gap defense. That's pretty much what it comes down to. If you can handle the pressure in the A gap, eventually there are going to be things to be had against them. And they turned that defense inside out finally when it was all done. Hey Jeff, I wanted to ask you this though, man. Like I said, you watch college football like no other. Are we seeing the earth turn right now in the national sense of like Austin and I, as I call him Boston, we put forth, or at least I put forth the theory last week that I think we're kind of seeing it turn. Instead of Clemson, Alabama, I'm seeing a turn more toward Clemson, Ohio State, and maybe even LSU. We'll see how LSU reloads, because that was sort of all the forces come together in a perfect storm for them this season. But just based on recruiting, et cetera, do you see a little bit of a turn slightly away from the Alabama eclipse?
Absolutely not. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think I might be in the
minority. Well, nice having you on my show. We'll see you next time. No, go ahead now.
If you read everything nationally today, I would be in the minority, but I think this might be a one-off for LSU.
Yeah.
Let's face it, they're going to remain a top 10 program. That's not what I'm saying. I just think they caught lightning in a bottle with Joe Burrow.
Yes.
And everything came together with these receivers and whether the running back comes out or not. But I could see them dropping back next year to go 9-3. They got Texas at home. Texas has got most of their players coming back, and that'll be the second start for the new quarterback. I just think right now, if I look at, and I try to look at programs more than teams. Programs is more important to me than teams.
Yes.
Teams are one year entities.
I'm with you.
I see Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State above everybody else. Oklahoma's still got to get their defense ironed out. They've had some other problems I see that have happened off the field as far as retaining players, recruiting, other things where they might drop off a little bit. They just play in the Big 12 where they're going to automatically win 11 every year and be there.
Yeah.
But right now I see the three programs, Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama in any order above everybody else. I see LSU maybe falling back in the pack. Now, they'll remain a top 10 program as long as he's there, Ed Orgeron, and they're going to always recruit well. But these three programs, to me, are heads and shoulders above everybody else. Now, when you forward that to 2020, you got two quarterbacks coming back. That's Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson's going to be plenty motivated to return to where they should be. Ohio State's going to be motivated. Now you got Alabama deciding between Mac Jones and the other kids coming in behind them, and they open up with USC and Arlington. I just think those three are going to be in the mix for stability's sake, for time to come. So it's just it's time for Ohio State to step up and win one. It's their turn. So, but they just had tremendous losses, as you know, too, with the two corners and Chase Young and J.K. Dobbins. They lose four superstars right there. So it's a matter of replacing those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. I mean, I didn't say that next year Alabama is going to be 5-7. That's not what I meant. But I just see Ohio State and Clemson from a recruiting standpoint. I see it turning. I mean, and you and I've had that discussion many times, Jeff, when we're sitting at your lake house or whatever about college football and how it does run to a certain extent cyclical. And the head coach does matter. And, now I don't know how long Nick Saban's going to coach. Let's put it that way. There seems to be some doubt creeping into like some of these recruits now when they're considering like Alabama and someone else. And I know they're still recruiting on a ridiculously high level, but I'm not talking about this happening, boom, next year. But I do see Ryan Day and Dabo Swinney as still young coaches who their programs are just going to keep getting better. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, they're younger than Nick Saban, but as long as he's there, they're going to be fine. I mean, look at their recruiting class this year. Those were the top three along with LSU, I believe, right? LSU.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as long as they're there, as long as he's there with that, he's always going to have a good staff. That they're always going to recruit well. And I don't see them dropping off one bit. I just think those are the top three programs in the game right now. And I don't see what's going to change until he retires. Dabo's got it gone down there, and Ryan Day is 40 years old up here. So, excuse me. I just think those three programs are heads and shoulders above everybody else, no matter who the national champion is right now. I might be proven wrong, but I think this is going to be a one-off as far as LSU and I don't see them competing for a national title next year.
I guess what bothered me about Alabama, we'll wrap it up with this, is I just see a little bit of a slacking now defensively for Alabama in the big games. I mean, they've given up a lot of points in games that matter. And
Did you watch the Citrus Bowl, though, right?
Yeah, I watched the Citrus Bowl.
Well, I think he wanted to make a statement. They're not going anywhere, and I think he made it. I mean, they didn't play well in the first half, and yet they came out and dominated Michigan in that second half, outscoring them 21-0.
Yeah,
and that was a statement toward going forward.
Yeah, I know. That
made them just like every other ranked team. Though.
Yeah, exactly. Now, granted, Alabama was playing without Tua Tagovailoa, but Ohio State scored 56 on that same defense.
By the way, let me say something real quick. Let me say something real quick, because I didn't see anybody in the national media mention this. Do you realize that Nick Saban, in the final play of that game, called for victory formation? They went into the victory formation. It was a pre-planned call, and ran a play out of it to score a touchdown. And nobody asked him in the press conference. Nobody asked Harbaugh. But it was a pre-planned call, as you watch the assistants on the sidelines calling for victory formation, and then run a play to score a touchdown. And I just think it got lost in the shuffle, but it's just amazing that occurred.
I know, and without that, they only scored 28 against that Michigan defense that gave up 56 to Ohio State. But I digress.
I've been watching football. I've been watching football forever, and I've never seen that occur in a football game.
No, I know. I know there was mention. I know there was mention about it after the game, but I don't remember if anybody. I mean, bottom line is, who gives a damn? That's the way I look at it. But hey, Jeff, we got to run, man. I really appreciate you coming on. You know that, and I'll see you on the 23rd, my brother.
All right, Happy New Year, guys.
All right,
Take
thanks,
care.
man. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeff Snook, one of my best friends, but also he keeps up with college football about as well as anybody in the nation, and knows the ins and outs and stuff. And of course, called me on my bluff about Ohio State, Clemson. I wasn't throwing LSU into that mix yet, by the way, because LSU's got to replace the most important person LSU's going to replace next year is going to be Joe Burrow.
It's one of the most important people that they've ever had in their program.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
maybe the best.
People keep talking about how long, the letters to Joe Burrow when he got to New York from the Cannon family. And I mean, that's 50, 60 years. They haven't had a figure like that in their program since then.
Yeah, Burt Jones was pretty good.
You're just going to move on. I mean, obviously they've had other good players.
Right, but I mean.
But he is a program-defining player for LSU now, which it's crazy because we've talked about the transfer portal and all that other stuff. But, I mean, that's not going to be an easy fix for LSU.
From the second quarter on last night, oh my God. I mean, he was unbelievable. I mean, like I said, he should have had 6 touchdown passes. He finishes the season with 60 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Crazy. With over 5,500 yards passing.
I wonder if that actually makes a defensive coordinator dad sick to think about a quarterback throwing for 60 touchdowns.
Oh yeah.
Let's ask him.
Yeah, let's ask him. Is Jim on?
We'll take a quick break.
Yeah, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back with, ladies and gentlemen, the father of Joe Burrow, Jim Burrow, and a favorite of this show, Jim Burrow, in just a moment.
Hey, college football fans, it's Zach Bourne here. You need to check out BetDSI.com. BetDSI is a great way to use your sports knowledge to make some extra cash. That's right. BetDSI is the top-rated online sportsbook. They've been paying winners for over 20 years. The reason they've been around that long is because they have got the fastest payouts in the industry. Plus, the user interface and mobile site is the best in the business. Play, win, and get paid. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if it's college football, the NFL, NBA, NHL, UFC, esports, reality TV, virtually anything. You can bet it. You can bet on it at BetDSI.com and get paid right now. There's no better way to add some excitement to games that you already are watching. Check out their live betting, where you can bet on games throughout the entire matchup, every play, and every minute until the end. BetDSI has a special deal for Lettermen Row fans. Use the promo code ROW100 to get a 100% bonus match. That's more than double. That's right, more than double your money to start winning today. Once again, go to BetDSI.com and use promo code ROW100 and get this limited 100% bonus offer to make some extra cash on the sports you know and love. BetDSI promo code ROW100. Now back to the show.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. As promised, we've got the father of the man of the hour last night.
Man of the year.
The man of the year. What am I talking about? The Heisman Trophy winner, et cetera. We've got Jim Burrow on the phone, who got almost as much FaceTime on the television in the postgame last night as your son Joe did, Jim. But, Jim, real quick question. How you feeling this morning?
Well, I feel good. I'm just hoarse, so there's no issues other than that. But as I said, I sound like Coach Ogeron, so we're all good.
Hey, I think it's a great impression you're doing there, man. Can you say, "Oh, football"? Hey, Jim, just give us just an impression. I mean, a father sitting there, you and Robin, your wife, y'all kiss each other a few times. She's got her hands on her face most of the time. Can't believe what's going on. The confetti's flying. What are the thoughts that are? And you're staring down the field. What are the thoughts that are going through your mind right there, though, as a father, a football coach, and a fan? What are your thoughts there? What were you thinking at that moment?
I mean, it's you're just real proud of what he's doing, but like a lot of people, you're somewhat amazed, and to think that that's your son down there doing that, it's special, and to see a great game like that by he and his teammates. It's the kind of the end of a journey and the start of another one, but that was going through our mind too. That hey, this is it, and we were just as emotional probably about that as the fact that they were winning. Was hey, this is Joe's last college game, and a lot of tough decisions by Joe, a lot of hard work got into that point and carried it through to the championship.
God, to see your son rise to the occasion, and like you said, put up with a lot of challenges through his last 5 years, and make some big decisions and stuff. I mean, that's just got to be, I don't know, almost overwhelming for a father, I would think, to see it come to fruition like it did, right?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't want to leave Ohio State. I mean, that was one of the tougher decisions he'll have to ever make, probably in his life, and it was the first really major one, that he had to make, and I felt for him that he was going through that, but he made the right decision, and it all worked out, and he certainly grew up a lot right in front of everybody's eyes, actually, and it ended up being the best decision again that he could possibly make, and but it wasn't easy.
What did he tell you late last night, or maybe y'all? I'm sure y'all have talked at least a little bit. What clicked for him after they got off the goal line? Tough start. But what just clicked? What did he tell you that clicked for him from of figuring out this chaos that was going on in front of him? What clicked for him into literally almost a record-setting performance last night?
Like you said, they had to get off the goal line. That's not easy to really run your offense. I mean, they tried, but it's just tough when you're backed up. And he was always confident. They just needed some space to start working those receivers against Clemson's defense, and he took a beating a little last night. He was sore.
Yeah.
The parents came out when we finally saw him about, hey, are you okay? And those type things. But it was special, and certainly he's excited about the whole thing.
Jim, was there ever a moment where the defensive coordinator and you were watching every game that Joe played this year, and he throws 60 touchdown passes, and you're like, you're trying to think of some way that you could have stopped him or kept a quarterback from putting up these records? Like, nobody was able to do anything against him.
Well, it was like high school, actually, except this ending came out better than the state championship. But
absolutely,
I mean, what I was watching was again what Athens High did Joe's senior year. I mean, they were scoring basically at will the whole year. They had great receivers. As a defensive coordinator, you're sitting there thinking, okay, you got three of the best receivers in college football, and that's not even including Clyde, the running back, and Thaddeus Moss, a tight end. And those guys are hard enough to cover, but then you put 3 first-round draft choices out there that just go after balls and compete. And, Joe he knew what he had, and he made some throws, and sometimes I'd say, why is he making that throw? I mean, the guy's covered, and then the guy just leaps tall buildings and makes a great catch. So he knew what he was doing.
Hey, you've watched football, you've played football, and you watched football your whole life. Like you said, we saw Joe Burrow grow up right in front of our eyes and stuff. But past that, Jim, I mean, now he's being touted as possibly the first player taken in the NFL draft. That wasn't necessarily the tune that was being played at the end of last year. Personally, I've watched quarterbacks my whole life too. He just exudes something in pressure situations, but also he seems to enjoy the reading of defenses, the solving of the problems, etc. Where do you think? Where did that come from? Did that come from being a coach's son, or is it just? I mean, where did that come from? And did you see it really blossom this year? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, certainly he was around football his whole life, and kind of had a great understanding for it. Probably the best thing is he got his mom's smarts and intelligence. So that helps when he's trying to kind of see what's going on. But they prepare him, Joe Brady and Steve Ensminger. I mean, They prepare him for what he's able to do and the looks that they think he's going to get. That's probably the most impressive thing all year, is that really almost every week they just saw something that they'd never seen on film from the defenses. But he studies film a lot. I think it helped that he had already graduated from Ohio State, took online courses in his master's program. He got his master's, but he was able to spend a lot of time watching film, maybe more so. Well, for sure, more so than if he was a regular student taking 12 to 16 hours and going to class and all that. So that all added up to really helping Joe understand what he was going against and what they were trying to do with their game plan. So I think he was fortunate to be able to spend as much time as he did at the facility. And the other thing is they have a brand new $28 million facility, and it's kind of a fun thing for him to be over there. I mean, the year before they had to get on a bus to go across the street to the practice facility and to lift weights and then come back and then the locker room. And when they got this facility this year with the cafeteria and just all the bells and whistles to watch film and that sort of thing, I mean, that all added up to help Joe too.
Kind of like the Ping Center, right? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. It was unbelievable.
That's down in Ohio University. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jim, when you
Austin.
This script with making the tough decision, taking the hardest possible path, really. I mean, I remember when Joe was getting set to leave, that Cincinnati and Luke Fickell desperately wanted to make this push for him. Joe bets on himself. He obviously wins the Heisman, national championship, and now who winds up with the number one pick? The Cincinnati Bengals back in the home state of Ohio. If that plays out, I mean, it's like I'm sitting here watching it, and I can't believe that this script is real, and it's not fiction, and you're part of it. I just you guys have to have moments where you're just sitting there like pinching yourself, saying, "When's this going to end? Like, am I going to wake up soon?"
Yeah, when I get back to Athens, I'm going to have some of my friends pour some cold water on me or something, and maybe I'll wake up. But I retired in last February to be able to go to Joe's games and experience his senior season with Robin and the rest of my family, and I would have been content just being there and watching him play well and winning a bunch of games, and then all of this happens, and you go, I almost, there was a chance that I could have missed all this, or I would have missed it all if I hadn't retired. But I mean, it's been unbelievable to be a part of it. My whole family has grown closer because of it. I've spent more time with my brother and my sister and my two older boys and all their families, more so than I ever have. I get to drive to my parents in Mississippi on the way to Baton Rouge and spend a few days with them. I'm doing that on the way back. So there was just
wow.
so many things that added up to just an unbelievable season.
I was going to say, what an odyssey. And, I mean, like you said, you know, we were from your crappy seats you had for that Texas game, you know, in Memorial Stadium there in Austin, and yet you witnessed a great moment to the SEC champ, to beating Alabama at Tuscaloosa. You were there to winning the SEC championship game, to being in New York City and watching your son win the Heisman, you and your wife, and then, like I said, the last two games, but watching him win the national championship. And then now you're going to have front row seats probably at the NFL draft. Or you're living the life, aren't you, Jim?
Yeah. Well, I am. Sometimes it's overwhelming to think about it, and it's great. I mean, we as I said, this journey ends, and the next one really begins as far as, you know, what we have to do in the next few weeks to decide, you know, where Joe's agents and, you know, how we're going to market Joe in this season, and his mom and I have already been through a whole bunch of interviews in Athens, in the plains there at our house. Joe didn't want any part of it. He has not seen an agent in person this whole year. He's talked to a few on the phone, but you know, we screened them all and interviewed them all, and we narrowed it down, and that's what Joe and I'll be doing this week, and I'll be in Baton Rouge doing that.
Hey, one last quick question and longer. So what does an agent, what's the pitch? What's the general pitch about they can make your son the number one draft pick? I mean, I can do that. Hey, Jim, I can do that for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he needs one.
No, you know, it's the contracts are all pretty much slotted.
Right.
But there's a lot of you know, outside things that an agent is responsible for. You know, financially setting you up with your workout facilities and just giving you heads up on teams that are interested in the draft. And so yeah, I mean, I didn't know how much there was to it, but even though the contracts are slotted, there is a lot to it. And then the marketing aspect of it too is, you know, Joe's pretty marketable right now. So, you gotta, we're meeting with some people this week about that too. And so it's putting it all together is another big piece of the puzzle for this year. And as I said, that journey begins really tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, and he's got that $50 million smile is what I call it now, man. Hey, one quick thing before you go. You know, his speech at the Heisman was off the chart. And number two, just I want you, because we haven't had you on since the Texas game, but what was it like to hear him say those things? I mean, I get goosebumps now about the way he commanded the moment, but then to see what that did for some charities in Athens, you know, in the Athens area there where you still live, what I don't know, what does that mean to you to see him take a moment and make the most of it, if you follow my drift there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, seeing him sit up there and stand up there in front of all those former Heisman winners, that's the best football player in the country.
Yeah.
And that's for athletic ability and what you've done on the football field. And then hear those 31 seconds of very powerful words makes you, as a parent, even more proud to know that, hey, he's not just a football player. He's somebody that does care about social issues. He doesn't speak out a lot, but he's always been willing to speak out, you know, whether it was NCAA or just some things that he feels in his heart and he believes. And that was certainly one of them. He had just a few bullet points that he wanted to hit. He just kind of really talked from the heart. And once again, as a dad and Robin as his mom, you know, that made it even more special for us.
Well, you know, a few bullet points he wanted to hit, and just like last night, he hit bullseyes. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, to think that he could have had 6 touchdown passes. I mean, what's wrong with that Chase guy, man? That one drop, but I mean, wow.
Well,
yeah,
it's he started out a little slow, but as we said, he was backed up on the 1 yard line. So that's you just got to make sure you don't turn the ball over at that point. You try to make a big play, but he thought they had a great game plan going in. He was really confident. His go-to phrase usually during the course of the week when I ask him what he says, we're going to be just fine. And that's what he said this week. And when he says that, I'm pretty confident too.
Hey, dude. I mean, it was a microcosm of his career to this point. Backed up against the goal line, things don't go well. Boom, he figured it out. You know what I mean? And made it happen and finished with a flourish. Jim, man, what a slice, man. I really appreciate you coming on with us again. And heck, we'll do this again before the draft, brother. But I don't know if you're good luck for me or if I'm good luck for you, but I really appreciate it. And like I said, go buy Robin some beignets and coffee before you leave town, brother. Appreciate it, my man.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. All right. Go Tigers.
Ladies and gentlemen,
just like Coach O there.
Just like Coach O. Jim Burrow, man. Proud father, happy father, but down-to-earth dude. Kind of like his son, you know. The acorn doesn't fall far from the tree.
I asked him about it, and it's so true. Like, and I've got another thought here, but the script is just literally, you can't believe it. I mean, I remember when he showed up. I wasn't there for the shootout in the state championship game. I've read and written.
It was
about
crazy.
It. Yeah, I wasn't at that game, but I know all about that history. But the kid that showed up and wasn't able to throw the deep ball and was so skinny, and you wondered, is it ever going to happen for him then? And he slowly, year after year, Mickey Marotti and working with that coaching staff and Urban Meyer and Ryan Day, you saw the development. And then when he left, that was a hard decision.
I told you, though, the spring game, his first year, when he was I think he was the only quarterback that wasn't wearing a Don't Hit Me jersey. I may be wrong on that, but I don't care. The bottom line is he got hit a lot in that game, but he threw some passes on the money, even as he was getting hit. And that just told me, I'm just sitting there watching this. I go, only one guy can play quarterback. That's the way it is. But there's something with this guy. When you watched him play in that state championship game, I guess it was Toledo Central Catholic in Ohio Stadium. And like I said, in the post game when they were giving out the runner-up awards, he's back in the back of the pack crying because he had a shot at a championship and didn't get it done. And it's funny because he referenced that after the game against the win over Clemson about, they were kind of jinxed, although his dad did win a Grey Cup. But they were kind of jinxed as a family about winning championships for the most part. And boom, he got it done. And but just to see him, forget about the story, the quarterback he has become, just from a technical standpoint, but also the ability to read defense, to not just dissect defenses, but to carve them up, and then the toughness he's shown to take a hit, to throw a touchdown pass, or to take a chance to step up in the pocket and make some things happen. I mean, he has become what you're looking for in a professional NFL quarterback now, and his ability to assimilate what's in front of him and make something out of it is uncanny. They had an answer last night. That's a term I've used a lot because over the years about talking about offense and quarterback play is almost every play, if it's being run by a pretty good offensive coordinator, there's an answer. You just got to find the answer, and more often than not, this year he found the answers.
Well, and I think that's part of it. It's hard for me to separate just the quarterback development from the overall story because so many of the answers come from, all right, well, I don't throw a good deep ball. Mickey Marotti, can you make?
Yeah, but he
stronger?
wasn't that bad.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
I know. I'm with
you.
you.
He rolled off the he's not the 2-star that they.
How about his deep balls now, man?
On the telecast, right? But he wasn't making all those throws, and he wasn't throwing the out with a lot of velocity.
Yeah.
Now, the toughness was there, and he could run. Okay, but how do I take the step there? All right, this is the next development, and if I'm not going to be the starter, what's the solution?
You know what? I was thinking about you last night because Tony Gerdeman, our friend, he tweeted a picture of Joe Burrow's right hand with the scar on it that looked like football laces.
And that's part of it.
Exactly.
And the toughness and trying to find a solution. And he told me in New York that he tried to get back before he was ready, and it was a setback.
Of course he did.
Because that's Joe Burrow. But that's all part of the story. And it doesn't need embellishment was sort of the long point I wanted to make, because they mentioned it last night. Well, he was a 2-star. Nobody wanted. Well, that's not true.
That's
he
right.
was Mr. Ohio. He's a 4-star.
Right.
Ohio State doesn't recruit 2-star quarterbacks.
Right.
If you want to say Scott Frost didn't want him and that maybe he felt slighted when he was going out, fine. But
where did the 2-star thing come from? I mean, I'm you know, it's kind of like, you know, like I said, Hoosiers was a hell of a movie based on a true story, but they had to change all the you know. Rudy was a hell of a story as it was, but they changed a lot of the. Why did they have to go that route? You think?
And you don't have to do it right now in the moment. Like if somebody wants to write the screenplay about Joe Burrow, which they probably will in 20 years, fine. And then you tweak it and you know, history has shaded it a little bit, and you don't want to use all the right fudge the numbers and make a blockbuster. Fine. In the moment when he's competing for the national championship, his story
is good
enough on its own. Athens, Ohio State. Not getting Nebraska, having to transfer, broken hand, going through 1 year at LSU, not getting it done, trying to come back the next year and get better and stronger, going undefeated, winning the Heisman. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Right.
You don't have to add in the things that just stick in my mind, which I was telling you on the podcast.
It's like the movie Bohemian Rhapsody.
Well, yeah, but like this is what I knew it was going to happen. When we were in here last Thursday, I said, you're going to hear that Joe Burrow didn't get a shot at Ohio State or that he wasn't good enough and everyone wrote him off. That was never the case. Ohio State recruited him for a reason. They wanted to keep him for a reason. They thought he could be a special player.
Yeah.
You don't have to add this other storyline and try and diminish what happened or diminish Dwayne Haskins or ignore the reality of the situation for Ohio State, where they made the choice. I don't think they made the wrong choice. People are going to have this debate for 40 years moving forward, just like the Fiesta Bowl. We're always going to be talking about it. Should they have kept Joe Burrow instead of Dwayne Haskins?
Here's the thing. In those kind of situations, like when I had Jim Burrow on back in September after that win over Texas, you know, he's a former defensive coordinator and coach. He understands that there comes a moment every year when you have a gut check on, all right, this guy's my starter, your second team. Now the great thing is, on most of the positions in football, you can play 2 guys, maybe even 3.
Right.
But at quarterback, that's not the case. And like he said, they thought it was, you know, in their mind, they thought he had a hell of a spring game that year when and if you talk to Urban Meyer and Ryan Day today, just like back then, they didn't want Joe Burrow to leave. No. They wanted a competition, but you do have to line the pegs up eventually on the board, but they wanted it to go into the preseason camp to decide the battle. Joe wanted maybe a little more of a chance to, it wasn't a guarantee, because going to LSU even wasn't a guarantee.
Right.
You know, you're going to a big time program. I mean,
I guess the guarantee would have been Cincinnati. He did go take
the guarantee would have been Cincinnati, but he wanted to play at a Power 5 school, you know, and take on the biggest challenge, going to a Power 5 school in the SEC West, where who holds sway?
Yeah.
Alabama.
Knock off Alabama.
Yeah. Bingo. I mean, you talk about taking on a challenge and then proving everybody not necessarily wrong. Ohio State thought he could play quarterback.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with, like, it just doesn't have anything to do with what Ohio State thought of him.
Right.
From his recruitment on. And the way
Tom Herman liked him.
The way this revisionist history is going to play out, it ignores the fact that Ohio State, while Joe Burrow was developing and then he became a Heisman winner and a national champion, well, last year they had a first-round pick at quarterback who was also a Heisman Trophy finalist that year. The fact they made that choice, it worked out. They were 1 game away from being a national champion or competing, going to the playoff last year. You know, Joe Burrow wasn't going to make the difference in that loss at Purdue.
Yeah.
Okay, and now...
Well, you never know. I mean,
the defense
he could run. Dwayne couldn't run.
Unless he was going to play defense.
Or Dwayne wouldn't run.
All right, so maybe the red zone, that's a real deep down hypothetical, but it's 1 game.
Yeah.
And you had a first-round pick and a Heisman Trophy finalist, and then he moves on, which wasn't fully expected. They didn't know that either of those guys would be declaring for the draft after last year.
Right.
But that allows you to get Justin Fields. So the fact that Joe Burrow left now gives you 2 years of Justin Fields, who, by the way, that guy was a Heisman Trophy finalist.
Right.
And if 10 plays don't go against Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl, they're settling it on the field head-to-head.
Right.
It's not going to be a thing where the quarterback's really...
I was sitting there watching that game last night, and I was just looking at the matchups, and I was just going, you know,
Okudah and Arnett.
If there was a
Wade
team that could beat LSU this year, it probably was Ohio State. The more I look at it, I'm just looking at the matchups.
Yep.
I'm looking at the across the fronts and the backs. I mean, in my opinion, the difference last night as the game went on were the two fronts by LSU, the defensive front and the offensive line.
Right.
I mean, again, when you play against a team like Clemson, like I tweeted in the middle of the game, it's going to be herky-jerky, man, when you're offensively, because they're going to make some plays with all the chances they take defensively.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make some plays, but you're also going to get some shots at plays if you could just pick up that one blitzer, man, that one guy who came free the last time. And, when Isaiah Simmons came untouched through the A-gap early in that game, I just went, oh, no, because it was a great split move by their three technique and their nose tackle, split the guard in the center, and he just came right through there. And I'm just going, wow. Hey, real quick, but LSU and Joe Burrow and the offensive line got it done. How's that for summation?
That's
real quick.
perfect.
Archie
segue.
Griffin, the number 4 all-time player in college football history through 150 years. What's your take on that list we saw in a nutshell? What just stood out to you about that top 11? I don't know if you ever remember watching it,
Yeah,
but
I mean, the thing that stood out to me was that there was nobody from the last 25 years of college football, and I know maybe they're trying to fight a recency bias, but
yeah,
the fact that a guy like Tim Tebow was not higher on that list, or Cam Newton, or Reggie Bush,
or
when
Orlando
you ignore some of
Pace.
the other stuff, I thought it was a poor list. I'm just gonna. And these are the same people that put it together that had Urban
It kind of
Meyer.
makes me mad. It kind of makes me mad. I'm going to interrupt you because I know people get upset when I do that, but I think Jim Brown was a hell of a player.
Not in college.
But Herschel Walker probably was the greatest running back I ever saw play college football, with Bo Jackson right next to him. And then Archie Griffin. I mean, these are guys that came along, and Jim Brown was right up there, but that was almost a political statement of Jim Brown got shorted because he didn't win the Heisman Trophy, so we'll make him the greatest player in college football history through the 150 years. I think he was a great player at Syracuse, but he wasn't on the level of Herschel Walker and Bo Jackson.
Yeah, I don't like
and
to,
even Archie Griffin, for that matter.
I don't like to disparage other media outlets for the way they do their business, and it's certainly not one that I spent a long time working for them. But when I looked at this list that they put out and the coaching list when they did the top 150, and Urban was 46 or 47,
yeah,
I felt like it was designed to anger somebody. And that's always going to happen with rankings. They're subjective. And I don't know specifically who voted on all of that for them, but it doesn't. I'm not saying Archie should have been number 1. I wouldn't put him there. I don't. 4 seems about right.
No, I think Herschel Walker, if I had to pick a running back from the guys I've watched play college football over the years, Herschel Walker would be the first guy I'd take, and Bo Jackson would be number 2.
And you've told me this many times because I wasn't around to cover
Orlando Pace would probably be the third guy I would take.
I think that he was, if you're going to pick an Ohio State guy, the most impactful one that they've ever had at a position. Archie's got the 2 Heismans, but Orlando Pace basically considered the gold standard at that position in college football history by most people who saw him play.
And Chick Harley might have won 3 Heismans if there had been a Heisman. He played before the Heisman.
Yeah, so certainly for you, but for me as someone who's really, I've spent the full-time professional college football coverage in my life has been the last 15 years, and I think about some of the Heisman Trophy winners that I got to vote for.
Yes,
I mean, Tebow's career is one of the most special, unique that you're ever going to see. I know people that find him polarizing now, and maybe even when he was in college, but that's not part of it. They put O.J. Simpson on this list, so I don't think they're factoring that stuff in. But Tebow and Cam Newton, Reggie Bush, Adrian Peterson.
Maybe they should have made the list the greatest players of the first 125 years
not the last
of 150 years of college football.
But think about some other guys like Ndamukong Suh.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. They were too careful to try and factor in the past and not give guys in the current era the attention. Because look, when we're going to be talking about 25 years from now, and if you don't put Tebow in your top 10 for college football history. I believe that strongly, that his career was that special
Yeah.
in college football. I don't. What are we doing?
Yeah.
He did it all. He won a national championship and a Heisman Trophy. That stuff usually pushes you over the top.
Yeah, you would think it would get you somewhere in that, but Roger Staubach, ladies and gentlemen, was a hell of a quarterback and played for the Naval Academy and came out after his 4 or 5 years of duty and then won a Super Bowl for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I think he deserved to be in there somewhere. Sure. But like you said, Roger Staubach was Tim. I mean, he could run, he could throw, etc. I have no qualms because it's really hard to compare. Like when Joe Namath came out, Joe Namath was a hell of a freaking player, man. I mean, till he got his knee hurt. Like I said, I got to watch Joe Namath play live on 2 good knees. I mean, he was as great as there ever was till he got hurt, and right on down the line. So how you got to finally come up with an 11. But when you put Jim Brown on there as number 1, that just bothered me for several reasons, because I think it's more of what he did as a professional football player and how he walked away from the game courageously. Of course, he had some off the field issues, as everybody knows. But the bottom line is, like I said, I'll go finish with this. In my opinion, Herschel Walker is right there, the greatest player I ever saw play. Mm-hmm. And Bo Jackson's right there with him. And then Arch Griffin, the pounding he took as a 5'9", 180-pound running back, playing on some of the toughest football teams Ohio State ever produced, that says it all.
Yeah, and like you said, you're never going to get it perfect. You can't even get a top 25 poll in any given season exactly right.
Right.
Because it's so subjective. My only real issue was that the last 25 years were not represented, and the college football has, in my opinion, never been better than it is right now. And I can only, compare the historical stuff, but you take the same viewpoint to other sports. The way athletes are continuing to get better, the evolution of the sport, like you have the debate between LeBron or Michael Jordan. Well, I mean, LeBron is a different physical freak, and the game in the NBA is better now than it was then. Yeah. It's more difficult to stand out in today's college football, where you have these elite coaches and the training staffs, and they know more what they're doing and cutting edge schemes and all this, that, and the other. Like you're elevating the game.
Who would I rather have as my number 1 player the first 47 minutes of a game? It would be LeBron James. Who would I rather have with the ball in his hand with 5 seconds to go?
Yeah.
It'd be Michael Jordan. That's the way I always looked at it. I think Michael Jordan's a hell of a player, but you're exactly right. Hey, real quick, let's jump. Clemson number 1. Who's number 2 next year preseason poll? Or do you even look at it like that? Clemson's got 20 starters back.
I've started trying to change my
Unless some guys make some weird decisions here.
Yeah, I'm starting to view it more from the prism of who do I think is going to be in the playoff next year, because 1, 2, we're not voting on a champ anymore. I think Clemson, I mean, they're not going. No one in the ACC should beat them ever. That's just the way it is right now. I think Ohio State's going to win the Big Ten. It's an interesting situation there in Week 2 against Oregon. That's going to be a really good game.
That's going to be a decider.
Yeah, and I think Oregon has some intriguing pieces.
Yes.
They're going to have to break in a new quarterback. They're going to get a big test early on. Same, Ohio State's also replacing a lot of pieces on defense, so that'll be an interesting sort of barometer for them. You asked Jeff about this, Jeff Snook. I think LSU takes a step back without Joe Burrow, and Alabama is still fully loaded with the talent across the board.
I agree with that.
To get there. The 4th spot, I mean, it kind of pains me to look at it and say this with Oklahoma, because I just don't think that they are capable of beating the top 3. But
wait a minute. Tom Herman's revamped his whole coaching staff.
Texas back. How does that normally work, though, Tim? You go
not very well, usually.
You have to completely clean out your coaching staff. You don't usually – I bit my tongue because Snook was talking about that LSU game early on and how many guys Texas had back.
Yeah.
Well, the coaching staff's gone. So
yeah.
Good luck trying to get results that quickly going to LSU. So I think Oklahoma's got the schedule and the league where they can get right back to the college football playoff and then lose again in the semifinal.
Yeah.
I think the 2 best teams going into next year, to answer your question 1 and 2, I think that's Clemson and Ohio State. And Alabama's going to be in there motivated and trying to play spoiler. but I don't see many other challengers. If LSU gets things at quarterback, if Georgia, they've got the same situation trying to break in a quarterback and maximize their talent. They've got enough on hand, but I don't believe that the SEC gets 2 teams out of their league.
You don't think Michigan? It's the year for Michigan next year. How many
times,
votes is Michigan going to get in that preseason poll next year? You think?
I bet they'll be number 9.
No, I'm talking about in the Big Ten preseason poll.
Oh yeah. Well, the same thing's going to happen that I told you happened in July last year. People get so bored.
That's right. That's exactly what it's about, ladies and gentlemen.
They want to stir it up. No one with 2 eyes can look at those rosters and say that Ohio State is not the best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times they have to prove it to these people who want to vote for somebody else. You know who's going to get it? People are going to talk themselves into Penn State.
Yeah, they are.
And they're going to be the preseason favorite, but they're not. Spoiler alert, Ohio State's going to win their 4th Big Ten title in a row next year.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be an orogeny of major proportions. That's Earth movement, by the way, OROGENY. But ladies and gentlemen,
that's a new one for me. I did not know that word.
Well, I wanted to make sure they knew I was saying orogeny.
Yeah, that's why I got a little concerned.
Yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another Tim May podcast. And for those of you who stuck it out to the end, we appreciate it.
That's where all the good stuff was.
And for that one dude, forget it, man. You know, you should have. Why you even listen if it's? Can't you see how long it is before you turn it on? But I digress. But this is Tim May with Boston. You know him as Austin Ward. We appreciate Jeff Snook coming on, one of my best friends, talking college football. Jeff and I ought to turn on the recorder some nights when it's just me and him sitting around talking college football. That would be a podcast of its own, except we could get some of the bad words out of it. You'd definitely be able to hear it because he's a little bit hard of hearing, and I always talk loud. So it's a great combo. But and then, of course, Jim Burrow obviously had a long night last night on the streets of New Orleans.
As we all do.
Yeah, but celebrating as great a story as there's ever been in college football, in my opinion. Maybe not the greatest, but it's up there competing with the great ones.
It is, yep.
The rise of his son, Joe Burrow, from average a year ago to leaving Ohio State and becoming average a year ago for LSU to becoming the Heisman Trophy winner, national championship winner, and probable number 1 pick in the 2020 NFL draft.
You know who loves that? Chase Young.
Yeah. There
Washington
you go.
Redskins.
Chase Young, looking forward to the competition once again. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back shortly with another Tim May podcast. But until then, I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and you know we got Buck IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.